Imagine this. The most famous city in Germany, a place that survived empires, division, and literal decades of global tension, suddenly becomes the target of a stealth jet strike in the dead of night. No warning, no rumble from old-fashioned bombers, no blips on the radar, just a silent shadow crossing the sky before the world even wakes up to smoke rising over the capital. It's an absolute geopolitical nightmare. It's the kind of scenario strategists whisper about in locked rooms, but never really want to discuss in public. Today, in this explainer, we're diving straight into that terrifying chain reaction. We're going to look at exactly how a stealth strike on Berlin could completely shatter the structure of modern Europe in a single morning. The true deception of modern warfare is just how incredibly ordinary everything looks right before it happens. Picture Berlin just hours before the attack. The city is alive, connected, and completely normal. Tourists are snapping photos at the Brandenburg Gate, late-night office workers are finishing up emails, and families are fast asleep. And above all of it, the night sky looks totally harmless. Cities always look peaceful, right up until the exact second they aren't. Stealth jets don't announce themselves, right? They don't rumble in the distance. They're literally built to erase their radar signatures and slip in with absolute silence. So the very first sign of disaster wouldn't be some massive cinematic explosion on your TV screen. It would just be a strange gap in the night. A quiet, terrifying moment when air defenses simply failed to notice what was coming until it was already way too late. And that right there is the true terror of a stealth strike. It's not just that the bombs fall, it's that the bombs arrive before anyone is even certain they're under attack. You are entirely stripped of the one thing every modern nation absolutely relies on: warning time.
Now, we need to clear something up. Stealth isn't magic. These aircraft don't literally turn invisible like something out of a sci-fi movie. In reality, the air defenses could be watching the skies. The radars could be fully active. The command centers could be packed with highly trained personnel staring right at their screens. And still, a sophisticated strike could just slip right through the cracks. Because stealth is really about shrinking a massive bomber's radar signature down to the size of, say, a small bird. It compresses time. It makes the window for reaction painfully, impossibly short.
If this happens, attackers aren't just dropping bombs randomly to flatten the city. Modern airstrikes are all about surgical precision. If someone is risking stealth jets in the highly guarded airspace of a major European capital, they are going after the high-value stuff, the strategic and symbolic targets. We're talking military command centers, critical communication infrastructure, major transportation hubs, or key government buildings. They're going for the brain, not the body. It's a carefully executed plan built around very specific vulnerabilities, designed to create maximum shock with zero warning. Once you grasp just how precise an operation like this is, you have to ask a much darker question. What is the attacker's true goal? What do they actually think they'll gain by hitting Berlin? Are they trying to intimidate Germany? Paralyze the political leadership? Maybe they're trying to provoke NATO into a reckless response? Or maybe it's something worse. Maybe they're trying to completely collapse the public's trust in the very concept of security. Every single possible answer points to one thing: deliberate, highly calculated escalation. Which brings us to this incredibly terrifying concept known as a demonstration strike. What if the whole point of the attack isn't to destroy Germany, but just to send a dark, undeniable message? A demonstration strike essentially proves that defenses can be beaten. It shows that deterrence has holes in it and that the sky above you is not secure. Through sudden violence, the attacker is basically saying, we can reach you, we can surprise you, and there is absolutely nothing you can do to stop us. If that message lands in Berlin, it is instantly heard by every single allied government on Earth. It's the ultimate instrument of strategic intimidation. And the immediate response? It would instantly fracture into two totally different, wildly chaotic worlds. On the ground, you have the visceral, frantic scramble for survival. Fire crews rushing in, police locking down entire districts, hospitals desperately prepping for mass casualties, and all public transit just grinding to a halt. But at the exact same moment, behind closed doors, you have absolute panic in national security command centers. The military goes on ultra-high alert, airspace is completely locked down, and emergency sessions are called. Every government official is desperately trying to answer one question: is this a one-off attack or the opening move of a global war? We actually call this critical window the golden hours of the crisis, because in a modern, hyper-connected city, panic spreads way faster than people do. Within minutes, social media is flooded with wild rumors, sirens are wailing everywhere, and rescue operations launch. Give it a few hours and the crisis goes fully international.
allies are frantically summoned, and you'd likely see NATO article-level discussions kicking off almost immediately. And within days, we are looking at a massive economic shock, severe market tremors, and intense mobilization for potential retaliation. The escalation is unbelievably fast, and it is almost impossible to pump the brakes. The ripple effects from this would be absolutely massive and instantaneous. This wouldn't stay a German crisis for more than a few seconds. Militarily, we'd see fighter jets scrambling across the entire continent. Economically, global markets would just tank. Insurers would panic, airlines would ground flights, and global supply chains would brace for massive disruptions. Politically, the EU goes into full crisis mode, rushing into urgent summits. A localized military event in one capital literally affects bankers in New York, manufacturers in Asia, and families thousands of kilometers away within hours. And honestly, it all comes down to this one number. 1. It literally only takes one single aircraft mission, one perfectly timed set of precise explosions in the exact right place to fundamentally alter the posture of entire global alliances. That one attack triggers troop movements, cyber warfare responses, crippling economic punishments, and diplomatic expulsions. In an instant, it becomes the ultimate stress test of the post-war global order, which creates this devastating psychological shockwave. It's perfectly captured by this thought: if Berlin can be hit, then no city can feel fully safe. Seeing a city like Berlin under attack would completely shatter the illusion of the modern European shield. Defense ministers would be demanding emergency briefings, and intelligence analysts would be obsessively dissecting exactly how those jets slipped through. Because think about it, if the air defenses of a major modern capital can just fail, ordinary people everywhere are going to watch the news and immediately realize their own vulnerability. Confidence is invisible, but once it breaks, everything else in society becomes so much harder to hold together. But we can't just talk about grand geopolitics without looking at the very real human cost on the ground. The panic wouldn't look like an action movie. It would be incredibly disorienting and deeply, deeply personal. We're talking about normal people waking up to shaking apartments and shattered glass. The sheer impossible dread of trying to call your family when the cell networks are completely overloaded and failing. You'd have this surreal overlap where a train station on one side of town is running normally, while a district 10 minutes away is burning. And for a city like Berlin, a place with such a heavy historical memory, there would be this profound, visceral fear that history is repeating itself, just with quieter aircraft and much, much faster decisions. So, how does this actually spiral out of control? Well, it starts because the attacker gambles that a stealth strike will create shock and paralysis. But that confusion doesn't last long, right? Actually, it quickly hardens into intense public anger. Suddenly, democratic leaders are placed under enormous political pressure. They have to juggle raw public emotion with international security, the law, and global responsibility. The public gets split between those screaming for immediate retaliation and those begging to avoid a rush into a larger war. In a hypercharged environment like that, one single miscalculation, one hasty retaliation, turns a limited, localized strike into a broader war that literally no one can stop. We often look up and just see, empty air. But the sky is not just empty space. It is a border. It's a shield. And more than that, it is a promise made by a nation to protect its people. A stealth strike on a major capital brutally reveals that the age of geographic distance keeping us safe is truly over. It proves that even the wealthiest, most powerful nations can be completely caught off guard, and that peace is far more fragile than we like to admit. Globalization didn't remove the danger. It just means that when the system fails, the consequences spread instantly across the globe. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly difficult question to ponder. How exactly do you preserve peace when the tools of war become invisible? How do you deter these kinds of attacks without turning every single city into a military fortress or sparking some endless paranoid arms race? The absolute most dangerous threats in the modern age are almost always the ones you never hear coming. I want you to really think about this today, because understanding how easily the impossible can become reality, that's exactly how we learn the true value of actively protecting the peace we enjoy right now.